There are several causes of cultural change: a change in a societal condition, cultural diffusion, innovation, and the imposition of cultural change by an outside agency. Cultural changes can result in changed conditions in society. This can include economic changes. When we had the Great Recession, and it officially started in 2007 and officially ended in 2009, although people still experience, and there's some people that are still experiencing changes from that, one of the things that happened is, or one of the things that we saw within that Great Recession, is that more people were living off of credit. People tended to have less money saved. Also within the housing market, we saw a huge decline within the housing market. And there was also a change in types of industry. We actually call this economic restructuring. When one industry that was predominant in a society, there's a shift where now there's a new industry that takes over. And sometimes one of the things that happens is we see where people may lose their jobs because of that one industry that was really dominant. In our case, it was manufacturing, and a lot of people lost their jobs during that Great Recession, and we moved into more of a service type industry. We are straddling a post-industrial society and an industrial society. So that's one of the changes that we've seen. We also see changes in population changes. One change that we have seen are the baby boomers and the way that they've changed society, the way that they've aged. They tend to age differently than previous generations did. Also, different social movements. They are just, we're not talking about aging, they're not just settling down when they hit retirement age, but they continue to work past 65, continue to exercise past 65. We have also seen changes when it comes to immigrants, cultural changes from immigration. Think about the differences we've seen within our grocery stores, even maybe within our school districts, because of different immigrant groups coming into to U.S. society. Yes, even whenever we think about not just immigrants coming from our southern borders, but when we think about the fact that we've had other immigrants groups that have come into the U.S. and they've changed things like, for example, St. Patrick's Day parades, or we may have even seen local Chinatowns. So those are other transformations that we've seen because of population changes. Okay. Cultural diffusion is a transmission of cultural elements from one society or from one culture group to another, the way Western culture has been transmitted worldwide. We can see that also dominant cultures are regularly enriched by minority cultures. Culture diffusion is one thing that drives cultural evolution, especially in a society such as ours that's very diverse. Cultural changes can result from innovation, including inventions and technological developments. The inventions of trolleys, subways, and automobiles changed the character of our cities. For example, at one particular time, people lived within the central cities, but once we started developing trolleys, subways, and automobiles, we started building suburbs. Suburbs got more popular whenever we started definitely building out because of automobiles. People no longer had to walk to work. Cities were able to expand outward. Think about the development of computer and how this changed the way people work and communicate. People can work from home. People communicate via email for work, and sometimes you can text. Also, the fact that you can Skype or you can FaceTime. Think about the fact of how you maybe hold meetings. If you're in a workplace and maybe you have a counterpart that's in another country, right? You can Skype them. You don't have to fly in for the meeting. You can hold meetings through different ways of technology. We can even see where our technology has allowed people to even earn degrees via online. Think about now, you're taking an online class where previous, I was going to say about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people couldn't take online classes because of there wasn't an internet the way that it's set up now. Okay. So those are some of the things that we've seen when it comes to cultural change. Culture can also be imposed. The dominant group can also impose their culture on another group. So we saw this when with the Native or indigenous groups as white settlers did with Native American societies. The white settlers imposed their culture, prohibiting the Native Americans from using their language, their religion, not allowing them to express their original cultural ways. This manipulation of the culture of a group is a way of exerting social control. One of the other things, too, that we've seen has been cultural appropriation. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Resistance to political oppression often takes the form of cultural movements that have exert or revised the culture of an oppressed group. This is happening with many Native American tribes. Reemergence of their language, their cultural traditions, joining tribal organizations, and reclaiming their traditions. When we're looking at this, we can see the aspects of cultural appropriation. For example, in our first picture right here, one of the things that we're seeing is this young lady wearing cornrows. And with cornrows, what happens with appropriation in this aspect is the fact that the group that originated cornrows, they don't get the credit for it, or whenever they do wear their cornrows, it's seen as unprofessional. But as soon as the dominant group takes that and starts wearing the cornrows, now it's professional, it's high fashion, it's seen as something like a new phenomenon. That is something, oh wow, this is something that was invented by this dominant group. Whereas a minority group, particularly African Americans, particularly African Americans were the ones who have been wearing cornrows for hundreds of years. When we see someone wearing Native American headdress, this is minimizing history. So it's basically the idea that I'm ignoring the fact of the genocide that occurred with Native American groups, and I'm using your headdress in a way that doesn't represent the appropriate way that it's supposed to be worn. It could be worn in spiritual ceremonies. It could be worn whenever Native Americans maybe were going to war. They had different celebrations as when that was going to be worn, as opposed to wearing it as kind of almost a fashion statement. And that goes back down to the Bindi, styling or stealing. And one of the things with, I don't know why my thing keeps about that. My computer is really, really sensitive. But even with wearing the Bindi and not understanding the history of the significance behind that, and you're using it as a style, that whole aspect is kind of the fact that I'm appropriating culture, and normally this can be done by the dominant group.